Welcome. So nice to I can't see any of you, but I can see our wonderful panelists. So I see a couple warm, friendly faces, which is nice. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. This session is being recorded, so it will be accessible later. We are happy to take your questions at any point during the presentation. You can drop those in the Q&A box. We will kind of go through them and hold them for on-air live answers in the latter portion of the session. But if it's a kind of straightforward question or pretty cut and dry, my wonderful colleague Courtney will answer in the chat box or in the Q&A box, so you can keep an eye on that. I am Ann Carter-Mulligan. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Batten. I mentioned Courtney. She's my wonderful colleague, Assistant Director for Admissions here at Batten. She works with both the undergraduate programs and our postgrad MPP. So if you want yet another bite at the apple after graduating from UVA, you can come talk to her. I'm also joined by some really wonderful, talented students who you will hear much more from in a little bit. But first, I'm going to give you just a basic overview of our programs, a couple slides, and then we'll get to the good stuff where you can ask your questions, and get to know our students a little bit better. So off we go. Frank Batten approached UVA in 2007 after getting really discouraged with the state of leadership in this country. He thought there was a real deficit at the highest levels of government, a failure in those in public service to actually enact and deliver on their promise to make good policy that changed people's lives. So he founded the school with an intent to fill that leadership gap, and that dual focus here on both policy and leadership is something that we think is very special. I think if you think about this present historical moment, I think you will agree that failures in leadership can have really catastrophic consequences, and we need good leaders who are willing to work for their constituents and who know how to get things done at the highest levels of government. So that's what we want to push out into the world. So where a traditional public policy school will focus on administration and analysis, we will teach you those things. We will teach you about the state of play in policy. We'll give you really good foundational concepts, but we're also going to focus on leadership so that you can both identify problems, propose solutions, and then actually enact them. So that means we'll give you a set of hard skills in research and data analysis, but also some of those softer skills that are really applicable to any number of fields. That's group behavior, analyzing group behavior, negotiation, team building, conflict resolution, project management. It's a really applied, applicable skill set. Our goal is really to help you move beyond theory to meet challenges and to create impactful change. So I talked about our vision. That dual focus means we really want to empower you and challenge you to become a resilient leader. Our students are very deeply engaged prior to application to Batten, while they're at Batten, and once they leave and graduate and go out into the world. We consider it our job to equip them with skills to meet their passions so they can go out and do that. We are small by design, so we only have 400 some students across all of our programs. This results in a really strong cohort model, a really close-knit community where you very much get to know your fellow students. The staff and faculty are very accessible. The student to faculty ratio is 10:1. That's one of the most highly rated features of the school. So you get lots of access and lots of support along the way, whether it's from my team through the application process, to a dedicated academic advisor, or to our career services support, which really works to help you find an internship and employment after graduation. We think it's really important to cultivate that Batten network because you continue to lean on them to achieve your professional goals. Our alumni remain deeply engaged, and they often recruit from Batten grads, and they help them meet their kind of professional benchmarks along the way too. We are interdisciplinary, so you're going to be studying social psychology, economics, history, politics, ethics, other stuff, and really looking at the ways that they all intersect and shape policy, often in really complicated ways. Just as importantly, our faculty are a mix of both scholars and practitioners. You'll see that common theme there of doing policy, the applied nature of our education. So they have both domestic and international expertise. They are former practitioners. Our dean, Ian Solomon, who's been at Batten about a year, is a former Obama administration official. He worked for him at the Treasury Department at the World Bank. We have former UN staff. We have former member of Congress, high-ranking DOD and U.S. Army staff. So they really bring their experiences to bear in the classroom. So that classroom setting is really interactive. It's very deeply collaborative. There's a focus on experiential and applied learning. When you leave us, we want you to have a really strong analytical and critical thinking skill set. You will know how to write. You will know how to design and execute a policy project. You'll be a proficient public speaker, all which can kind of be a really good launch pad for any number of careers. So what are those programs? We're an upper school, meaning that students typically apply in either their second or third year and then spend 2 years with us. You'll see we have an accelerated Master of Public Policy, a bachelor's, and a minor. For that accelerated degree, students tend to apply in their third year, and they have to get an undergrad degree in something else outside of Batten. So you major elsewhere, probably something in the college. In your final undergrad year, you take a mix of undergrad courses and you begin your Batten graduate coursework to start to lay the foundational concepts. You do a mandatory summer internship, and then you come back for your 5th year, which is pure graduate school. You really start to apply some of those concepts to policy areas that are interesting to you. As I mentioned, the focus is really on applied knowledge. So the capstone of the program is the Applied Policy Project, where you work as a consultant with a client to help them solve a real-world problem. It is a professional degree. It's a deep dive into policy and data analysis. It's really grad school. It's not grad school light. It's very quantitative in focus compared to our BA and to our minor. And it's really for students with a certain set of professional outcomes. They know they really want to directly influence the policy sphere. The BA is more of a generalist degree. So you'll take courses at Batten in your 3rd and 4th year in Foundations of Public Policy, in leadership, economic analysis, various multidisciplinary contexts, and then a variety of special topics, which are essentially our electives. That's where you get to kind of stretch out and look at different policy areas that are interesting to you. So think of the accelerated program as a real deep dive. This is more of a kind of 10,000-foot level look at policy issues, where you end up being a really good consumer of information, a smart consumer, and a policy advocate. And then finally, we have a minor. So you apply along the same timeline as the BA, 2nd year. It's a good way to supplement your primary major with some policy, whether it's something in the hard sciences or economics, politics, media studies, English, whatever your fancy. I struggle really to think of a single major that doesn't benefit from a little bit more policy literacy. It is an 18-credit minor. Our BA is a 40-credit major. So it's essentially half the classwork. You're in the same coursework. You have access to the same faculty and support, save for our career services team isn't available to you for as much hands-on support through your time. And so I guess if you think about it, this is maybe an even higher 20,000-foot level view of policy. I like to mention briefly tuition and financial aid right at the get-go so that you can kind of plan accordingly and you know what's coming. The bachelor's degree, we have differential tuition from the College of Arts and Sciences that's a bit higher, much like our peers in architecture and nursing, engineering, and commerce. That said, you are eligible for institutional, that is UVA-wide financial aid, including Access UVA, which of course meets 100% of demonstrated need at the undergrad level. So if your need rises due to higher tuition, your eligibility for aid scales up as well. In addition to that, there's some limited funding for students in the major, but they tend to be employment-based. So typically 10 to 20 hours a week, you could work at the front desk, you could be a communications intern, something like that. The accelerated program is structured a little bit differently. So think of it first before I give you the bad news. The benefit is that you're getting a master's degree in 1 additional year instead of 2. So in the first year of the program, you continue to pay undergraduate tuition to your home school, probably something in the college. And financial aid remains a central resource through University Student Financial Services. Then in the second year, you move into the Wild West of graduate tuition, which is unfortunately a little bit higher. Also, there's no central resource for financial aid for grad students. That just tends to be the norm. It's all school and department based. So the ways that Batten offers some funding to start to tick down the cost of attendance is through limited need and merit-based fellowships in that second year of your program, teaching assistantships, which are probably the best deal because they offer in-state tuition, not probably, definitively the best deal. They offer in-state tuition plus a stipend plus some health care. But we also have work study, employment. I say all of that not to discourage you, but you should definitely, if you're thinking about the accelerated program, come talk to me. I can link you up with current students. We can talk about resources that might be available to you, because you should not anticipate that our financial aid will cover your full cost of attendance. All right, that was a drag. So let's move on to the fun stuff. You can try out a class. Many of you, I saw lots of first year registrants. So many of you might already be in Intro to Public Policy or Intro to Civic Leadership, which are wonderful primers to our curriculum. In the spring, you could also take Public Policy Challenges of the 21st Century, taught by this gentleman, Jerry Werborg, who has a long history in the Beltway and lots of really cool connections, and he brings all of them to class to be guest speakers. It's a really cool class. You could also take one of our special topics course, essentially our electives. Anything above the 3000 level and any of that intro coursework can be applied towards curricular requirements. So that tends to do things like free up space for double majoring, picking up a minor, study abroad, that sort of thing. You can take some of it in advance. It's also a really good way for you to determine if Batten's a good fit for you. We don't prescribe it on the admission side. It's not going to be part of your official evaluation. I will say that we've had some students who've taken a whole boatload of Batten courses and unfortunately haven't gotten in. We've had some students who have taken none at all and have successfully been admitted. So keep that in mind. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. We really want you to explore and really get to know your own interests and what motivates you before you make the decision to come to Batten. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but we do have some research centers and labs. Our faculty conduct cutting edge research, and there are opportunities to get involved as a student in that research. You will see social entrepreneurship is one of the research centers. I should note that we also have a social entrepreneurship minor at UVA. It's not just Batten's, it's an interdisciplinary cross-program minor where you're really preparing to work with nonprofits or socially impact-driven for-profits or philanthropy, impact investing, that sort of thing. So if you are interested in social entrepreneurship, I can point you towards resources where you can learn more about that minor. So to what end should you consider taking harder courses, spending more money? The short answer is our job numbers are really outstanding. So this slide, I hope, is large enough that you can see. These are numbers from the class of 2018, showing that within 6 months of graduation, we had 98% employment across our BA and our accelerated students. We have class of 2019 data. It's just not quite in a pretty graphic yet, and which actually reflects 99% employment for our BAs. I'm not gonna make a guess about what employment looks like following a global pandemic, but you should go forward with full knowledge and appreciation that our career services team is going to hustle to try and make something work for you, because they have wonderful outcomes. They work with you from the very start of your time at Batten. They do resume workshops, they do interview preps, they bring firms and companies and agencies to grounds. They really work to make connections between what you're passionate about and what you're well suited to do, and those professional opportunities. So you'll see here a breakdown of where our students ultimately go. It might surprise you that a fair number of them actually go into consulting, more so on the private sector side at the BA level, more so for the government at the graduate level. I think this really reflects the strong, very broad base in really applicable skills that you receive at Batten. So, project management, obviously, critical thinking, creativity, all of those things lend themselves very well to consulting. So you'll see grads enter business, but they also enter direct government service, nonprofits, research institutions and think tanks, the service organizations, Teach for America, Peace Corps, as well as grad school. So I would say much more common path for our BA program. About roughly 10% of each class, I think it's a little lower this year, 10% of the class goes right to law school from graduating from Batten. I'd say more than those, though I don't think we have official numbers. Courtney, I'm looking at you. Yeah, probably build up a couple years of work experience and then make that pivot to law school. So it's very good preparation. Top destination is DC, but we also have grads working in New York on Wall Street. We have grads working abroad in the global policy realm. We have grads working in the tech sector on the West Coast. The bottom line is there's a big cross-section of industry and government and public service represented for our grads. All right, just a touch about admissions and application. So you apply second year, as I mentioned, for the major or the minor, and typically third year for the accelerated program. If you came into UVA with a boatload of credits and you're looking at early application to any of our programs, please do come talk to me or talk to Courtney, because we can kind of help you identify some pitfalls at working that path, some challenges, and really help get you set up for success there. You begin the program the following fall. So prior to that fall, you have to complete just the 2 prerequisite courses, depending on the program that you see here. I will say I neglected to put this in the slide, but instead of social psychology, you could also take our Batten specific section of social psych, which is called Foundations of Behavioral Science. That will look at social psychology through a policy lens. So it's another great option for students who want to see if it's a good fit. I think that one is LPPL 3100, and I believe, I believe it's this year for the first time it's going to be offered in both the fall and the spring. It tends to be just a fall course, but there's enough demand that we're opening it up further, so keep an eye on that one. Our programs are very competitive, so we very intentionally keep our numbers small so we can continue to offer the experience that our students receive. There are typically anywhere from 80 to 90 seats in each BA cohort. And in the 90-person MPP cohort, about half are accelerated candidates, so UVA students, half are traditional 2-year postgraduate candidates, so about 45 of each. You'll see the admittance rates here. So last year we received about 215 applications for the BA, about 120 for the minor, and 64 applications for the accelerated MPP. So we're definitely one of the smaller schools at UVA, but we like to champion ourselves as having an outsized impact and really being able to offer our students a lot because of our size. So what distinguishes these successful applicants? Here's what we look for in an applicant. There is really, truly no magic GPA. There's no cutoff, no prescribed set of extracurriculars or classes that you would have taken. We really want to see your passion, your engagement, your interest in policy, and your academic growth. When we think about building a class, it really isn't for the 2 years that you're here. We're thinking 5 to 10 years down the road, who's going to be out there creating positive change, being a change agent in their community. And that looks very different depending on where you are and what you're interested in. So we practice a very holistic review. There's no one factor that determines admission, but a balance of the things that you see listed here. So leadership, we think about both formal leadership roles, but also informal roles, the way that you are a leader in your daily life. Professional vision is kind of your motivation to study policy, what you want to do further down the road. Work experience and community engagement, that would be things like jobs and internships and school and community service, extracurriculars, that sort of thing. Basically, what are you passionate about and how are you practicing that passion out in the world? And then lots of things, of course, factor into academic growth, but we want to see your performance in the prerequisite courses, any relevant coursework. We want to see you grow over time as a student. Are you challenging yourself? Are you maintaining a full course load? Can we see kind of a narrative in your interests and expertise as they develop over time? There's no perfect student. Courtney could probably chip in with the range of GPAs that there's, I guess the short answer is don't take yourself out of the running, because we need a lot of really diverse voices around the table to confront the kind of magnitude of policy challenges facing the country and the world. So no one kind of student is really going to fit the bill. All right, so if I haven't scared you off by both the depth and breadth of the information here, if you take nothing else away from this, do take away that we in the admissions office, Courtney and myself, are really here to help you find your path. If you want to be at Batten, we want to help you find a way here. So we will host events throughout the year to share info about our programs, our application process, our various resources. Those are all digital for the time being. So we're working on the fall. We just scheduled a very cool panel that's co-hosted with the Career Center for September 23rd. That'll be on careers in public service. But we also have a weekly expert chat that's a community-wide event that's not an admissions event. Sorry, that's the Batten Hour. That's weekly on Mondays. We also have regular expert chats. So venues like that are where we're really bringing in experts to talk about the most pressing policy issues of the day. We will have application workshops after our application opens on October 1st. So you'll be able to get one-on-one feedback on essays and resumes and that sort of thing. We really want to help you through the process. We really want you to be successful. So speaking of experts, I am delighted to stop talking now and turn things over to Courtney, who will help moderate the student portion of our session today.
Great, thank you, Anne. I hope you all at least took away some new nugget of knowledge when it came to Batten. My name is Courtney Lyson Snyder. I am the new Assistant Director of Admissions here at Batten, and as Anne mentioned, I work with both undergrad and grad admission. Before I turn it over to our students, I did want to remind you can continue asking questions through the Q&A box. There were a couple questions I answered directly, and I'll touch on those briefly in case you didn't see those come up. I also included links in the chat for making appointments and some of our upcoming events. So we'd love to continue to see you and actually see your faces this time. The two quick questions I did want to mention that I have already answered in the Q&A box is we do have students who do minor in Batten and major in the engineering school. So if you are looking at a more structured major like engineering or maybe commerce through McIntyre, please come talk to us so that way we can kind of walk through what that program of enrollment would actually look like to make sure it will fit with your schedule. But we do have students actually in both of those majors who do our minor program. And the other big question and top of mind for especially the second and third years listening in is if you received credit last semester for your grades, particularly for our Batten prereq, if you earned a credit for that course, you did satisfy the prereq. So you don't have to worry about retaking the course and trying to get a C+ or higher. If you have a credit, you are totally fine. As a part of all of our applications, there is an optional application addendum. So if you did want to use that space to maybe explain why you opted for a credit, you can use that space. It might give us more context, particularly if you had to balance some family demands in addition to doing all of your coursework. So use that space to explain if you do think you need it. But you don't want to hear from me. We have a whole list of questions coming up, but I first wanted to introduce all of our panelists. We have 3 amazing panelists, some who are here in Charlottesville. I don't know if Jackie's here yet in Charlottesville, but they are here to answer your questions. Some of them are fresh faces to our school, others are old hats. So I will turn it over to, assuming the oldest in the room, Ben, to kick us off with introducing himself. He can explain the program he's in, where he's from, and some of his interests.
Sure. Thanks, Courtney. I am not too old, but I might be the oldest in the room. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Dooley. I am a second year in the Batten Master's program. I did it on the accelerated track. So I graduated in May, virtually graduated in May with my degree in foreign affairs. I am from a small town outside of Boston, Massachusetts. You've probably never heard of, but here I am. And I am interested in foreign policy and national security policy pretty broadly and pretty generally. As far as career aspirations go, I am hoping to join the Foreign Service, which is a long process, but follow up with me in a year or so and I'll let you know how it went.
All right, we'll go to our other second year student in our program, Jackie.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie. I am a 4th year, second year in the BA program, and I am in Charlottesville, Courtney. So it's been a time here, and I'm originally from Northern Virginia, Burke, Virginia, if anyone knows specifically. And I would say my health policy interests lie in healthcare and health policy. So I'm actually a double major in global public health. So that's through the global studies program in the college. And I am matriculating into the accelerated master's in public health program here at UVA. So if anyone has questions about that, I'd be happy to answer to the best of my abilities. And I guess one other thing is that when Anne was mentioning about, should I take a boatload of Batten classes or, what's that like? I'm actually one of the students that taken no Batten courses before I applied. So I really just came into Batten, but it's been a great experience so far. So don't feel like you have to, again, put all your eggs in one basket.
All right, and last but not least, our newest Batten student, Lauren.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Cochran. I'm a 3rd year. This is my 1st year in the Batten BA program, but I'm also double majoring in African American and African Studies on the pre-law track. I'm currently not in Charlottesville, but I am from Stafford, Virginia, and that's where I am now. And some of my policy interests lie within racial equity work, economic justice, and I'm really interested in issues such as like housing discrimination, unemployment rates, labor, and how can policy really intersect with marginalized communities and make that difference. And so my future goals lie within going to law school, and I'm really interested in doing some work on Capitol Hill, whether that be in congressional houses or for the Senate. I'm just really interested in those types of fields.
Such ambitious plans. I love them all. So I say, since we have 11 questions out there, we'll get started with those questions, and then if there's time, I can always ask you some questions. So first up, this one might be a little more for Anne. If we're applying to multiple majors, are we allowed to push back our decision date to find out about admission to other programs?
Oh, you aggressively productive, awesome UVA students. Yes, we tend to have decision deadlines that are roughly in alignment with some of the other programs. So I know, I think we are aligned with commerce generally as a general matter. Global development studies tends to be a little bit later. Maybe some of the honors, like politics honors, might be a little bit later too. So we're glad to work with you on deadlines because we really want it to be a good solution for you. It's not a zero-sum game for us. We really want you to pursue what is interest and what is of most use. So yes, it's the short answer to that longer answer.
All right, our students may also be able to answer this next question. Do internships and jobs from high school years get counted on our application, or is it solely our engagement at UVA? Did any of you include any cool experiences from high school on your app? It might be a couple years in the past for some of you.
I don't know what I included on my resume, but I actually wrote one of my admissions essays about something I did in high school and how that kind of led me to Batten. And that's the most important part of your application, and it worked for me. So I would say probably, yeah.
I absolutely concur, Ben. So yeah, certainly if there is something that really got you towards policy, we'd love to see it. And also, you know, we know that you have to be a lifeguard over the summer and things like that. That's also part of your story. So please share it in that capacity.
I will say, from an admissions perspective, it's really nice to have balance across all different pieces of your application. So if you're thinking about calling on a reference, say from high school, make sure you balance that with a reference from your collegiate career. If you want to list your high school leadership roles, because you probably had more of an opportunity there to really put down roots and take charge and lead in a formal capacity, absolutely highlight that. But do let us know about you today and now as well.
All right, this one is specifically for Ben. For the Accelerated Master's Program, does the 400-hour policy-based internship have to be restricted to government work? Also, for the student panelists, what internship did you use to fulfill your requirement?
It does not have to be restricted to government. The one kind of restriction is that it has to be focusing on public policy. So there are students who intern with consulting firms and with NGOs and with advocacy groups and with think tanks and with the government, both local, state, and federal. But you, for instance, couldn't do an internship with a private sector company where the internship was focused on private sector thinking, if that is clear. As for what I did, this summer was a little bit different. I had my internship canceled, unfortunately. I was set up to work at the State Department and they canceled their internship program. So I actually worked here at UVA, virtually here at UVA with the Global Policy Center and Professor Gelsdorf. And we did research on humanitarian policy and kind of leadership in the humanitarian sector.
Great. I'm going to combine two questions here that are very similar. Can you apply to more than one program, such as applying to the minor and the major? And if you applied to the bachelor's program and didn't get in, could you then apply for the accelerated program? The answer to those are yes. And you are welcome to jump in and talk more about it, but we really want you to find the programs that are best for you, and we do review each application separately from prior decisions.
Yes, so we stagger the BA and the minor application phases so that you can apply to both. Not because the minor is a backup to the BA, though we do have plenty of students who apply to both. But as Courtney said, we really want it to be a good fit for you. So I think this year we've structured it so you will have your decision for the major in hand before the due date for application to the minor. So you can choose to continue to walk that path if you wish. And then I will say we do have a handful of students who apply to the BA and then apply to the accelerated program. We also have a few students who actually begin the BA and then through the course of that first year either realize that their professional goals have become more clear or decide they're just ready for graduate work, and so they make the leap up to the accelerated program the next year. So yes, there are multiple doors in, and you can kind of change course midway. Yes.
And if you are admitted to both the BA and the minor, because you're trying to weigh some other options, we will give you that grace and flexibilities to find the program that is best for you and your academic plans, to answer the person if you get into both programs. How does tuition work? Sorry, there's lots of technical questions tonight. How does the tuition work for students double majoring across schools? Do you pay tuition to Batten or to the College of Arts and Sciences, or both?
Both. That would be, who could do that? That would be quite a heavy lift. So if you are majoring with anything outside of the college, I think any of the other schools, that school has to be your school of primary enrollment, with perhaps some exceptions. I think maybe Curry, there might be some more flexibility. You might be able to choose, but Batten, Batten would be your kind of primary major, and you would pay Batten tuition only. If we could take a step back to the internship question, because I did want to make it clear that the internship is a required component of just the accelerated program, but our BAs absolutely have internships and seek help from career services to get those internships. Lots of them have had really interesting ones, even applying to the program. So Lauren and Jackie, I'd love to hear about any internship experiences that you've had.
I can go first. So I actually interned at JP Morgan Chase for this past summer. It was virtual. And I actually worked for their HR summer analyst program. And so that was really interesting, just because as someone who's interested in health policy, I didn't realize that within HR there's wellness, employee welfare. And so that opened my eyes to, this is something that if I want to pursue health policy in the private sector, this is an option for me. And Steve is the best. I cannot recommend enough. Steve, his is our career counselor. He's the best.
So for me, this past summer, I interned with the Meriwether Lewis Institute for Citizen Leadership here at UVA, and it's actually a 2.5-year leadership fellowship. And it's a cohort of 25 students, and you typically will get to work on a project that the university is currently working on. And so, of course, because of how the situation is going with COVID, we ended up working on a return to grounds project. And so it was really good because we were able to work within a team, a group of people trying to solve a problem, but we were also doing a lot of public speaking, and we were doing a lot of writing and communicating our skills. Even though it was via Zoom, you still got so many good things out of that. And something else that MLI does really well is you get a mentor with that program. And so I highly recommend it, especially for people who are applying to Batten, because that's something that you would have to apply to within your second year. And you can indicate that on your application that you did get into this leadership fellowship.
So impressive. All I did this summer was sit. That's what I did in college too. You guys always astound me. Speaking of summers, someone asked if we would be offering social psychology or LPPL 3100 during J term or the summer. Both of those are still TBD in terms of what Batten courses are offering. Amanda Crombie, who's our Director of Academic Programs, did say that there's maybe some opportunity for a Batten Special Topics course, either through Batten or through the college that would be approved as a Batten Special Topics that would be offered in J-term. Summer session is usually where you see more of those standard courses like Econ 2010 and Social Psych. So there's possibly some flexibility there, but it's not been finalized yet. The question for Lauren, hey, a double question for you actually. Are you involved in any clubs that focus on equity work, economic justice, etc., that you would recommend to others? Also, will not joining a lot of clubs, extracurriculars, our fall semester of first year affect our quality of our applications?
And so my answer to this question would be that I'm involved with mostly leadership-based organizations, and within those organizations, I'm able to really get into my policy niche. And so, for example, I'm a part of the Democracy Initiative here at UVA, and I'm on the Student Advisory Board, and we do lots of great events partnering with the Center for Politics and the Center for Equity and Inclusion work. And so if we decide to do an event, we're always talking about what does democracy mean? But for me, it might mean something different from my colleague. And so I'm always thinking about how can I push these ideas of racial inequality? How can I push this idea of economic justice? And so I found that even though my involvements do not directly align with, let's say, like racial equity work or economic justice, they give me the skills that I need. So when I get into those fields later on in my life, I have those skills. I am involved in some organizations that related to the pre-law side. Like I'm involved in the Undergraduate Black Law Student Association here at EBA, and I'm also a peer advisor through the Office of African American Affairs. And again, both of those organizations help me strengthen my mentorship component aspect. So, and then the second question was, how involved do you need to be? Is that correct? I would say
if you
really
aren't
just
involved fall semester first year, is that going to hurt your chances?
no. And I know that Anne can probably talk more about that, but no, I don't believe that will hurt your chances. As long as you're really getting involved in terms of your leadership and doing things that you are passionate about, that will shine through. And also the essay is super important as well.
I think buried in that question might be some hesitation because of opportunities, and maybe opportunities not being as prevalent as they are usually because of the pandemic. I think that our admissions committee this year is going to have to really adopt, and I know that this would be their intent, a more kind of liberal interpretation of what participation looks like, because we understand that there's reduced opportunities. So I think you can take heart in knowing that everybody's in the same boat, and that we'll be looking for ways to really get that kind of qualitative sense of you and what you are passionate about through your essays, through your recommendations. So that question of how important are recommendations, which I saw pop up in the text, I think they're really important because both from the academic side, we really want to get to know you as a student, and we want to know your potential for growth. We want to know kind of your classroom presence. Are you helping to promote discussions? Are you empathetic? Are you a good listener? And then on the other side, your recommendation from someone from outside the classroom, that will be really helpful to see this year, particularly if you aren't able to go out and do those things that you normally would otherwise. They will be able to give us a sense of what keeps you fired up, what you get excited about, what drives you and motivates you. And I saw Lauren, did you want to add more?
Yes, I totally forgot to mention that I'm also involved within an organization that's in Batten, and it's called Black Student Leaders in Public Policy. And I should have mentioned that, but it's a great organization. And then once you get into Batten, this is just one of the many affiliated organizations that you can get involved with. And through there, you're really working on your policy interests.
And we do have a brand new equity collaborative that was started by 3 Batten students, and I believe is actually open to non-Batten students too, if equity is your top interest in terms of policy. Now, have any of our panelists studied abroad at all? We have questions about study abroad. All right. Would you like me to talk about study abroad then, Anne? Sure. So study abroad definitely works with Batten, and if you're looking at the major, it doesn't necessarily work as well with the MPP, but there are some options that are there. So I know a lot of you probably have your study abroad plans interrupted for at least the foreseeable future. So with study abroad, you would go in a lot of different capacities. Some students use the summer for study abroad or J-term. Those are going to be far more flexible for you to be able to still be on grounds all 4 years. If you do opt to study abroad, say the fall of your 3rd year, all of those courses that you hadn't taken yet in the Batten BA program would then move over to the fall of your 4th year. If you study abroad in the spring of your 3rd year, whatever you didn't take ahead of time in the spring would then move to spring of 4th year. Some students use study abroad to take care of Batten special topics, which are the only classes that you can take while abroad. Other students use study abroad to take care of gen eds or requirements for their other majors. So there's definitely room in there to do study abroad while you are in Batten. At the MPP level, you can't take a semester abroad while you're in the MPP. Normally we do have some courses in J-term or in the first summer session where you could go to Vietnam for a study abroad on environmental policy. We've had students go to St. Kitts and Nevis over spring break, which sounds delightful, to look at health policy. So there are some smaller opportunities to go abroad in the MPP, but you can't do the semester study abroad, but you can definitely do it while in the BA program. And we're happy to walk you through that curriculum map if you do have more questions. We have lots of questions about the MPP, Ben. First, can you remind me, did you apply to our MPP program a year early?
I did, yes.
Great.
Yeah, so I did the
You get
3+1.
2-for-1 questions. What's it like to do the 3+1 for the MPP? And generally, what's it like balancing undergrad and grad in the first year of the program?
Okay, I'll do the first question first. What's it like to do the 3+1? Obviously, the biggest thing is credits and how are we going to fit your undergraduate major in, and how are you going to make sure that you can graduate from undergrad in 3 years, but really you kind of have to be kind of wrapped up in only 2. For me, that made mine taking a couple of J-term courses to make my major work, and then having a lot of semesters of more than 15 credits. So it can be a lift, but I also came in with AP credits. So if that's you, it's probably doable. In terms of like, how was it? I think you get kind of pushed ahead in your academic career. And I found that, you know, I have 4th year undergraduate friends that are taking 2 classes a semester. And here I am in my essentially 4th year taking, you know, 15 credits of graduate coursework. For me, it's completely worth it. You save a lot of money for one, but also it's just, I wanted to do the harder work, but I think knowing kind of what you want to get out of your undergraduate experience and making sure, say if you really are really set on double majoring, you're not going to be able to do that and do the 3+1. In terms of the first year of the accelerated, when you're an undergraduate student and a master's student at the same time, Amanda Crombie, who's our director of academic programs, uses the analogy of a fire hose that doesn't stop going, and it's just constantly pointed at you. She used that and it scared me quite a bit. And it's somewhat applicable. There's a lot of work, and the transition from undergraduate to graduate work can be tough. Thankfully though, everyone is going through it together. And I think pretty soon, probably about a month in, it just kind of becomes the new normal. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I'd be prepared, and I'd know that when you're starting at a first year of the accelerator program, that you're gonna have to really buckle down and get to work. But I think anyone that can get into UVA can handle it pretty easily.
Good answer. Well, I'm going to turn to all of our students now because there's a really great question in the Q&A, and I want each of you to have a chance to speak on this. To the students, what is or has been the most worthwhile challenge you have encountered while at Batten? This is probably one of the best questions I've heard in an info session.
I can speak on this first. I don't want to say it's really a challenge, but I think a greater appreciation might be a better way to put it, is how diverse everyone is in the Batten School. Like Anne and Courtney was mentioning earlier, that everyone comes from all walks of life and all different kinds of policy interests. And some people are just generalists, that they just want to learn policy. And, you know, for someone like me who's interested in health policy, sometimes when you're taking certain courses, the only policies that they're really teaching are policies that you're not necessarily have a niche for. For example, like I've learned policies with like national security and like economics or like environmental policies. And so having that opportunity to expand my horizons and understand different policies has been extremely beneficial for my understanding for like policies as a whole and just like how policies work.
I can go ahead and speak next. So I would say one of the challenges that I experienced was not within Batten, but it was kind of something I needed to get to Batten. I took economics, and it's the same economics class that everyone has to take, economics 2010, and I struggled. And it was definitely something new, something harder for me. I took AP statistics back in high school, but that had been like a year and a half later. And so it was a lot of catching up, and through it, I was like, you know what, is this worth it? Should I apply for Batten? Like, how important is this skill? But I ended up really getting through it. And after I got through it, I felt much better. And actually today it came up again because we were doing a prisoner's dilemma exercise in civic leadership. And I saw those components of economics entangled within leadership. And so it was this worthwhile challenge that now it's really paying off. And so that's something that I can definitely speak to, just because I'm not really a quantitative person, I'm more of a qualitative person. But throughout my time in Batten, I'm really going to be working on strengthening that quantitative side. And I'm already seeing the payoff.
I think for me, the first year of my program, the biggest challenge was kind of dealing with that like imposter syndrome that I think kind of everyone feels at some point at UVA. I know for me, because in the accelerated program, you're taking classes alongside like 35-year-olds who have been out in the professional world for a long time and really know what they're talking about. And so it's tough to deal with that imposter syndrome and get to a point where you feel like, oh yeah, I belong here, I earned my spot here. And I think the best way that I found to kind of deal with that is just knowing that you had to go through the same process to get here, and that everyone, no matter, you know, if they're 35-year-olds with kids or 20-year-olds that somehow find themselves in this grad class, you still have something to offer to the conversation. And there's a lot of different perspectives that come from both the BA program, like Jackie was saying, but also with just the wide range of people you get in the master's program. And so using that kind of to your advantage and learning from it is my advice.
All right, so we're quickly coming up to the end of our time here tonight. I'm going to ask just one more from the questions before we wrap it up for the evening. I feel like we've touched on some of these topics, and again, if you didn't have your question exactly answered tonight, we are here to answer them via email or through appointments. So I'll turn actually to Jackie. One student wants to know what you plan on doing in the long run. She's very interested in health policy. So where do you see yourself? Lauren's going to grad school, Ben hopefully foreign service. What about you?
So I might have not explained this well when I was introducing myself, but I am matriculating into the 4+1 Masters in Public Health program at UVA. So it's basically like the accelerated MPP, but for an MPH. And since I talked about I'm interested in health policy, however, I'm very open as to where I want to go from there career-wise, whether I want to work in the public sector or the private sector being more of like wellness and employee welfare, as I got to experience that and learn more about it through my internship this past summer, or I guess a couple months ago. I don't really know how to say from there. Or like, you know, federal consulting firms, or I'm just very open to, you know, the possibilities, but I would love to work somewhere with a very healthcare specific focus or health policy specific focus. And if you're interested in consulting by any means, there are definitely consulting firms that are focused in health policy. I know ZS Associates is one of them. And even if you apply to any more broadly like federal consulting firms, although you might not be put on a health policy project right away, but that's definitely an option for you as well.
All right, so we've heard a little bit about each of our speakers tonight, where they ultimately want to end up, some of their interests. So I want to kind of put yourself back in your shoes 2-3 years ago, and you're trying to decide, what the heck am I doing at UVA? What major do I want? What program do I want? Why did you ultimately choose Batten, and what sort of advice would you give to some of our students who are considering our programs today? It's a very deep question. It's a lot at 8 p.m.
Yeah, I can go. I guess my piece of advice to you all, and then to my first year self as well, was don't worry about not having everything figured out. I think a lot of times, like, you know, at this panel when we're giving out our bios and everything, it seems like all these, you know, students have everything down to a science. We know our career plan and our life plan. I thought I'd had that when I came in as a first year, except I came in as a biochemistry major. And so, and I really, after a couple of weeks, realized that I didn't have everything figured out. And that's okay. And embrace that and explore new things, and try to figure out not just like what excites you as a career, but what excites you as a person. And that's how I found Batten. I didn't even know it existed when I applied to UVA. And so I kind of stumbled upon it, and I'm very glad I'm here. So yeah, embrace that. Just know that no one really has it figured out just about yet, especially not as a new UVA student. And that's a good thing, and can hopefully help lead you to Batten.
So what brought me to Batten was just the opportunities, the sheer level of community, and also the fact that you can study public policy as an undergraduate student, which is something that's so important. At the time, I really didn't know what the difference was policy or politics, but ultimately the decision that really made it for me was the fact that policy is so applicable to every single field. So even if down the line, I'm like, you know what, I don't want to go to law school, I'd rather work in the State Department or the Department of Justice, I can do that with a policy degree. And you can do that because policy will really prepare you for anything. In addition to that, the leadership component is just so critical and so interesting. And something that Batten does really well is it combines leadership with social psychology. And when you have something within the field of social psychology, you really learn how to work within groups, how to work within teams, how to communicate. And again, those skills are just so applicable to everything else. And so I would say if you're interested in Batten or something similar, like I know PPL is popular major, or PST, I would really look into the fact, do you want to be the person, and this is how Larry Sabato talked to me about it a while ago, do you want to be the person delivering the speeches, or do you want to be the people writing the policy? And so if you want to be the person who's writing the policy and making the real change, come to Batten.
That's really, Lauren, you really did like pave that so well. Like that's really hard to follow. But I think for me, I have a lot of similar sentiments with Ben. I came to UVA thinking pre-med, but I knew I wanted to do global public health. But sometimes it's really just one course can just change your entire trajectory in college. I will say though, after like the first month of like thinking I was pre-med, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's for me anymore. But I took a university seminar class. I don't think it's offered anymore, but I just was very fortunate to take it during my first year, and it talked about the US healthcare system. And if anyone's interested in a US healthcare system class, I'm a TA for it, and the professor is amazing. And I ended up taking the 3-credit class afterwards, and I just became really entrenched in like, okay, why does the US healthcare system work the way it does? You know, why is there so many shortcomings in the US healthcare system? And just learning like the overall like big picture. And again, big picture thing is something you really get like can't like beaten into you when you come to Batten, is like, how does this all work in like the grand scheme of things? Yes, like you can be the policy writer and like write all these components, but really like seeing it being delivered and seeing that policy evaluation in the end. And it just comes down to this idea of, you know, as public policy students, and why a lot of us go to consulting, is the fact that, you know, we are presented with complex problems, but we deliver with comprehensive solutions. And so at the end of the day, I had a couple of upperclassmen mentors who were in the Batten school, and they really helped me navigate all of these thoughts or, you know, career ideas that I had, and that's kind of how I was led to Batten.
All right, so I know we are pretty much at our hour. We really appreciate you spending a little piece of your time, whether you're here in Charlottesville or back at home, to spend some time to learn a little bit more about our programs. I know we moved pretty rapid fire through some of those questions tonight to try and get everyone's questions answered. Again, if you do have additional questions, you can check out our website. We have FAQs, we have upcoming events listed there. This is our general Batten email. We all receive the emails and we'll respond to you as soon as possible. We would love to see you in an appointment or through some of the upcoming events such as Serving the Common Good. But for now, I would like to say thank you for attending and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good night, everyone.